Welcome to this week's edition of the End of the Bench podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Slotter, and with me, as always, is Jazzy James Haldeman. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, doing good. Not much has changed since last time we spoke. How you doing, man?
Good. It rained today, and it's still too soon here in Houston, but we're gonna make it through.
Oh, yeah, that's a little bit too soon. It sprinkled here last night.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy for like an hour, but it's all good. So no flooding, everyone's safe.
Perfect.
An interesting week in the NFL this past week. An very interesting week upon us. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to the Thursday night game because we were having to do this on Thursday, September 21st. But hopefully we'll be able to have it out to y'all Friday morning. And I'll be in New Orleans this weekend, so I'll be doing some other gambling as well. So
would that involve hitting the number 21 with a couple of cards?
21, maybe some 21 red on the roulette table.
Who knows where the night's going to lead?
so there will be updates. No worries.
Perfect.
All right, so let's get off. We're going to be basically doing the same roadmap as last week. Interesting trends. Favorites were 9-7 last week. 16-14-1 on the year. Overs were 5-11, 10-21 on the year. Home teams were 9-7, 16-13-1 on the year. Obviously, the unders are still continuing to just absolutely murder the public so far this year.
Yeah, so I did what I did last week, and I'm going to continue to do it until the data tells me otherwise. You're kind of like, if there's a analytics versus eye test in the NFL, I'm going to be the analytics guy. You're going to be the eye test on this podcast. So I was looking through week 2 of last year, or of this week, sorry, and just kind of looking at the numbers. The average scores, total points scored in an NFL game this past week was 40.18, compared to the average Vegas line of 44.68. So from week 1 to week 2, Vegas didn't look to adjust their overs on average, which is part of the reason I think that the unders hit so big again. They were slow to react. I think they kind of thought scoring would come back, but I think it's more of a trend of, like we talked about last week, bad offensive lines, good defensive lines, and not as great quarterback play across the board in the NFL. This week, Vegas's average over-under is 41.7, so they've bumped that down 3 points this week, and it looks like they're finally catching on, and it's going to be less of an anomaly. I think even Vegas thinks the NFL is going to be a little bit slower scoring going forward in this season.
Yeah, a lot of games under 40, which was really unusual last year. So we'll see if that continues going forward. Biggest surprises, or at least interesting storylines. For me, I'll start off with the Florida teams. I think we all expected Tampa Bay to come in and beat Chicago, but the way that they beat Chicago was very impressive. Late, basically a shutout, late touchdown at the end really was cosmetic. The defense looks great. There's a lot of talent on that side of the ball. I think we all wondered whether or not it would come together. Jameis doing well, holding up, and the offensive line holding up against a good Chicago front. And he just really played an efficient game. They're running the ball fine. Especially whenever Doug Martin comes back, that'll only amplify that. So I think we got some of what we expected, but I was still very impressed with how Tampa Bay played, and a lot of people who were on Tampa Bay to win that division, to overtake Atlanta, have to be feeling good, despite the fact of how well Atlanta played against Green Bay. And then Miami with a come from behind win against the Chargers at their 30,000 person soccer stadium, which was not. We didn't know how. We saw how Houston came out after the hurricane. Really just wasn't into it despite being at home. And on the road, Miami, after being displaced for so long, really came out, played solid. The defensive line is still good. and we knew that coming in. And Jay Cutler made enough plays to win the game, and Jay Ajayi looked just as good as he did last year. So I think there's a lot to be hopeful for a Miami team that's looking to compete with the New England Patriots for the division.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I guess on that point, maybe you and I, because of their week 1 performance against the Falcons, probably thought a little bit more of the Bears than we should have. Going into Tampa Bay now, but with that being said, Tampa Bay played far better than I expected them to in week 2 against Chicago. Like you said, almost pitching the shutout. The touchdown was irrelevant late at the end. Miami, for a team, like you said, that's been displaced for so long, they look like they were out, ready to go. Kind of no hangover effect from that, even though it was a comeback. They look good. Sadly for San Diego, they kind of cost themselves a win with a chance at a late field goal. I know week 1 was to tie it up, but they were playing very well at the end of that game against Denver. And it kind of looks like a repeat of last season where they just can't win these close games late in the fourth quarter.
I mean, everyone wants to root for you. Just not given any reason for America to get behind them yet.
I guess I'll give you a couple that I have. I have Seattle as a disappointment again. That offensive line is just in shambles. They could only put 12 points up against the Niners and actually were in a position to lose that game late until they got a late touchdown. They've got a lot to figure out there, I think. I think the defense is still solid, but that offense, specifically the line, and some of the receiving core is going to take a lot of work. Russell Wilson's going to have to carry a big load for them the entire season if they're going to be successful. And then a positive I have was the Detroit Lions. I know their first 2 opponents haven't been – I mean, Arizona struggled again this week, so we don't really know what to expect from them, I guess, the rest of the season. So, but their first 2 opponents either haven't been good or given us a lot to go on, or the Giants also have been terrible the first 2 weeks. But that defense has been really, really solid. I mean, if Stafford doesn't throw that pick 6 in that first possession against Arizona, they haven't given up many points. The front 7 is really, really good. And outside of that pick 6 Stafford threw, he's been very, very solid, above average, obviously, quarterback in the NFL so far. And it'll be fun to watch them play Atlanta this week to find out what they're really made of and kind of see where they actually rank among the 2-0 teams going into week 3.
Right. And so I guess, some of your talking points are going to lead into some of my talking points here. And I'll just go down the list and I'll ask you, Denver, for real, not for real, need to see more? Or are you convinced?
I think I'm going to need to see a little more from Trevor Siemian. I'm pleasantly surprised with him. He looked really, really good against Dallas. But again, I don't know how good Dallas is. They struggled to score points against the Giants in week 1. And obviously we know New York's offense is in shambles, so I don't think we know how good Dallas's defense is yet. And I think we'll learn a little bit more about Trevor Siemian as we go along, but I'm certainly happy to see them playing the way they are and happy for him.
I agree with you there. Denver is like a covering monster at home. They always have been. Altitude, fan base is excellent. I would like to see them go out on the road. This weekend is a great test. Buffalo's not a good team. Can they go take care of business on the road, or are they just going to be a great home team and a mediocre away team?
Yeah.
Green Bay. Are you worried about Green Bay? Are the injuries a concern? Will they right the ship?
Injuries always seem to be a concern in Green Bay every single year. I think it's going to take a little more time to see what they can do. I'm not super concerned about the loss to Atlanta. I guess I'm concerned about the way it happened. But Atlanta is one of my positives, so I guess they've just looked ready to go the first 2 weeks. So they struggled with Chicago a little bit, but they were still able to win that game pretty comfortably. And then they thrashed Green Bay last week. It wasn't as close as the final score indicated it was, and it was a pretty lopsided score. So I'm impressed with the way they've come out. No Super Bowl hangover. I think if you had to pick out of the 2-0 teams, they probably look the best through the first 2 weeks of the season, and that's why I'm so excited for the Detroit-Atlanta game this week. Green Bay, I'm not going to be worried about any team that has Aaron Rodgers and the weapons that Aaron Rodgers has. I think they'll always be able to put up points, and the defense can get some things figured out as long as they get healthy and et cetera. But I'm not worried about Green Bay yet. I think they're still solid. I think that division could put 3 teams in the playoffs, and the NFC South's probably going to put a couple in there as well. But I certainly think they have the makings of a playoff team there in Green Bay. And once they get there, we've seen that they can do anything.
Right. Yeah, and they're great. They're great at home. We
Yeah.
always do that. They get a weak opponent with something to, but still a weak opponent this week. So even if they keep people out, they ought to be able to win. Not sure they'll be able to cover. The line's at 9 right now, maybe 9.5 in some places. It's like 9 with juice.
I think I
So
saw it at 9. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not sure if they'll be able to cover. They're a different team. Jordy there. Devontae Adams is better than when he was 2 years ago. Whenever he was hurt, they have Martellus Bennett now as a staple tight end. Rodgers still hasn't quite got comfortable with him yet. Maybe this is a week where they can really include him in the offense. And then Ty Montgomery has been excellent. So it will probably be fine. We'll see what the injuries do, to Cobb and to Daniels and to Jordan Nelson. And then Seattle. You mentioned Seattle earlier, so you Seattle.
Yeah, I am a little bit down on Seattle. I just think they've got so many problems on offense right now. I mean, obviously the defense is great. They've been able to hold teams, but they can't protect Russell Wilson. He's kind of running around for his life back there, and only being able to put up 12 points against 49ers defense that gave up 23 to Carolina, whose offense hasn't exactly clicked in the first couple of weeks, is pretty concerning, especially with them being at home where they have such an advantage. I would give them 4 points for a home advantage up there usually, and they only won by 3, which it's not indicative of how much better they actually are than San Francisco. But if you just went by that, then San Francisco beats them on a neutral site. So I think they've got some problems there to figure out offensively.
See, I'm not worried about Seattle. This is what they do. Last year, they offense 12-10, and then they lost to the Rams 9-3, and then they only beat the Jets by 10. They tied the Cardinals 6-6, and lost to the Saints 25-20. And then in the second half, they always turn it on. It's just who they are. The line seems to gel more in the second half of the season. Tom Cable, somehow makes it work. I think they put some stuff in the bag for Russell Wilson. They started doing more running plays with him.
Yeah.
So, and then even back in 2015, they lost to the Rams. They lost to the Packers. They barely beat the Lions. They lost to the Bengals, lost to the Panthers, and then Russell Wilson just went on an unbelievable streak to finish out the year, and they were just crushing teams. So I'm not so worried about them. This is their slow starting team. If they start losing in November, I'll start to worry. But until then, I'm not going to be concerned about them.
That's certainly fair.
And then the Giants. We talked a little bit about them, at least about Detroit's performance against the Giants. So I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they said that there are 0 tickets, and this is the only team where no one has bet the money line on them.
Wow.
This weekend against Philly. So that tells you where the Giants are. No one believes in them. Are they able to right the ship? Braden Marshall looks old. Evan Ingram had a good game, but he's hard to trust as a rookie. The line is terrible. They haven't got a good running back. The defense isn't as good as it was last year.
Yeah, the line's still pretty good, but you're certainly right about the defense. It's not as good as it was last year. The thing that concerns me most is they're having offensive line problems with no running game. And if you can't hold back a defensive line, keep them from just pinning their ears back and coming after Eli Manning when you've got a shoddy offensive line with some sort of running game, you're just not going to give him any time to get the ball to his weapons. Odell Beckham still wasn't healthy last year. And even if he is healthy, I'm not that sure it's going to make a difference. They're just struggling so much to get things going on offense this year. And as an 0-2 team, I'm not sure the exact stat, but they basically bring it up every year. If you start 0-2, you have a lot of trouble making the playoffs. So I'm pretty out on the Giants a lot because I'm high on Philadelphia. I think they've looked good. Even in their loss to the Chiefs last week, they've looked pretty good. And I think with some better quarterback play from Wentz, they're a very, very good football team. They've got weapons, and they've got a very good defensive front seven.
I'm probably going to go against the grain here, and I'm going to say that while I'm concerned, I have not lost all hope with the Giants. I think Odell Beckham was very hampered last week. He tried to tough it out, but he just clearly was not the same person. after the catch. And this is, I think, prime Giants spot. I'm not saying I like them this weekend, but they always like it when everyone's like throwing off their scent. They always do well whenever everyone expects them to, and then whenever they have expectations, they don't ever meet them. So I think, maybe they finish the season like 8-8 or something, and they win like, 8 of their last or 7 of their last 11 games or something like that. I think that's going to be something that's in store for the Giants, although their schedule is not easy. So we'll see. But that's my prediction.
I think if they lose this week, you look at where they have 13 games left. They've got to play Philadelphia again. They've got the rest of the NFC North. They've got Dallas again, who they really struggled against in week 1. You're right. They don't have an easy schedule. It'll be interesting to see if they do lose this weekend, what they could do from 0-3.
Right. So, all right. And then moving on, we have some candidates, as we always like to do. This is probably more for me than anyone else, but I'm a big believer in the zigzag theory. And so I always like to pick out candidates for the zigzag theory. And I have 5 this week. Some I like, some I don't like. And I know you've identified some as well. So
yeah,
what I have on the list is Jacksonville at home, in their home in London, England, playing the Baltimore. They are underdogs against the Ravens. Jacksonville was terrible last week. Their line did the exact opposite that it did to the Houston Texans offensive line. Tennessee righted their concerns with their ground and pound game. Mariota was much better in this game. Bortles was Bortles in this game. Pretty much it just went all wrong for Jacksonville. Are they going to be able to rebound against Baltimore?
No.
I think no, but these London games are always so weird. And while it isn't a home game for Jacksonville, they obviously know what they're doing there in London because a lot of the players have already been over there and played over there, like 80% of them. So I give Jacksonville some, and they, I don't know. Baltimore's not going to run away with the game.
I would say that the reason that the line is only 4 points is because of the fact that Jacksonville has been there and done that before. Because Baltimore's looked really, really good through 2 weeks, and Jacksonville's kind of looked, based on 1 week, the opposite. They got pummeled. So I think that's the reason the line is so close. I think you're definitely spot on with that one.
And then, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that one. The next one I do like. The Jets are getting 6.5 or 6 with juice in some places at home against the Dolphins, who just went over to Los Angeles and beat the Chargers. I'm not a believer in the Dolphins yet. This is an NFC East, AFC East rivalry game. I don't think the Jets have a super great home field advantage, but they always play the Dolphins well. I remember growing up, Dolphins-Jets games were classics. Wayne Corbett, catching, passes in the end zone from like Vinny Testaverde and stuff. It was madness. But I think this game is going to be close. 6 is a lot of points to be given up. I expect the Jets to really come out and be prepared because they got beat so badly last week. And their defensive front really didn't hold up as I thought it would against the Raiders, although the Raiders do have a good offensive line. I don't think Miami has a good offensive line, so I think that the Jets have a strength on a weakness of the Dolphins, and I at least think it's going to be a low-scoring, close game, which 6 points is a lot to cover. Maybe there's a backdoor, cover somewhere in there as well. What says you?
I think 6.5 is a lot of points to be giving up this early for a rivalry game in the AFC, like the Dolphins and Jets, especially at home for New York. I don't think New York's particularly good, but I'm going to need to see a little bit more out of Miami before I buy into them giving anybody 6-7 points at any point during this season. That offense is going to have to show me a little more. We know the defense is good, but like you said, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. For both sides, I think the defenses are a strength for each team, which makes 6.5 points quite a bit to cover. So if we were looking there, I definitely like the Jets.
And then the next game I have on my list is the Saints heading to Charlotte to play the Raiders. They're getting 5.5 after getting pummeled by New England. The Panthers didn't look great against Buffalo. They did while the score was 23-3 in San Francisco,
They didn't look great.
They didn't look great there either. The defense is not going to just give up, 3 points, 3 points a game from here on out.
Right.
Actually get tested. Carolina's offense is not going to be is going to be limited, or at least very different without Greg Olsen there, for at least for the foreseeable future. So I like the Saints getting 5.5. I might even like the Saints a little bit to win this game outright. I know they've struggled. They're like 1-11 spread in their last 12 September games.
Yeah.
But I like them in this game. I like this spot. I like another interdivision game. Give me the 5.5 points with the Saints.
Yeah, I like the Saints here as well. I don't, mostly for the reason I just don't believe in Carolina all that much at this point. Like you said, the score looked great against San Francisco, but the offense didn't look as good as the score said it did. And the fact they've only given up 3 points in each game doesn't really tell us a whole lot, I don't think, yet, because they've gone up against offenses of San Francisco and Buffalo, which I don't think are super great. On the flip side, I'm not a huge believer in New Orleans offense at this point. I think New England's defense isn't that great, and they only put up 20 points in what was a relatively fast-paced, high-scoring game, and they struggled to score against Minnesota. So, but I do think they're in a position here where they'll keep it close in an interdivisional game. I think 5.5 for New Orleans looks pretty good.
I have one prediction for this game. I believe Christian McCaffrey will have a top 5 fantasy performance non-QB this week, because the Patriots torched the Saints linebackers with their running backs, and I think McCaffrey's better than than Rex Burkhead and James White.
Sure.
So, and without Olsen there to be in the middle, I think McCaffrey's going to pick up the slack this particular week. They're given just the problems and slowness of Saints linebackers, and I think he has a humongous week.
Yeah, I certainly could see that.
On to the next candidate is the Chicago Bears. Are they going to be able to bounce back from their horrendous performance against Tampa Bay to face an even better team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, in Chicago? Steelers coming off of a sound victory against the Sam Bradford-less Minnesota Vikings. I'm on the fence, but I don't really like this game for the Bears. The only thing that gives me pause in this is that Pittsburgh is notorious for just having one game where they lose and it doesn't make any sense. Last year, they lost to the Dolphins and they just got blown out. And I know that was like Jay Ajayi's coming out party, but it was like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, it was a beating that just nobody expected.
And they're always down for one of these games, and this could very well be the game. It's early in the season. They're 2-0. It's an NFC opponent. Who cares? So that's the only thing that's giving me pause about this game. But the Bears' offense is just terrible. Their best receiver is a running back. Their best running back isn't available. I do not believe that oh my God, blanking on his name, that Howard is going to be able to play.
Yeah, Jordan Howard.
I have him in like 3 fantasy leagues, so I'm just SOL on that one. So I don't know. There's a lot of arrows that are pointing me against the Bears. The only thing that's pointing me in their favor is that I know the Steelers and they're due for one of these games this year.
Yeah, I would avoid this game. I don't particularly like it for the fact you said the Steelers can just lay an egg out of nowhere, just a complete mystery to everybody occasionally, and I don't like the Bears. I think the Bears showed us more who they were this past week against Tampa Bay than the close game they gave us against Atlanta.
And then the last one on my list is my favorite game of the weekend, and definitely the most interesting line of the weekend, in my opinion, is the Seahawks getting 2.5 at Tennessee in a 3:00 game.
Let's see if we can get Slotter back on here. I think he just froze up, so I invited him again. We'll see if we can get him back on here. Always have technical difficulties. All right, we got him back.
Awesome. All right, let me pull up my notes again. Damn it.
It wouldn't have been the End of the Bench podcast if we didn't have some sort of technical difficulty in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah. Right when I was building up steam too.
Oh my, you were on fire.
All right, so
tell us about the Seahawks.
All right, so this game is a strength on weakness game, which is why I'm on the fence about it, because I don't think the Seahawks are a good run defense. Well, they might be okay. They're like above average, but a lot of their guys are very small up front, and a lot are meant to rush the passer. This is not what Tennessee does. So I don't know. I expect the Seahawks to bounce back, but their early record, early season track record over the years, as I described earlier, is not good. And the fact that they're playing a team that runs the ball as well as Tennessee does gives me pause. But this line is super interesting, and it might be close to even. If it's close to even or like half or 1 point, Tennessee, you might want to take that line. I don't know. I'm interested. I'm just very interested in this game. I'm definitely going to be watching it at the casino while I'm at the roulette table on Sunday. All right. And you said you had some zigzag candidates as well?
Yeah, I had Minnesota written down, and I have a note that it's depending on who's playing quarterback.
Currently, it does not look like Bradford's going to play.
Currently,
I personally do not expect him to.
If Sam Bradford does not play, they just haven't posted any lines for it yet on Bovada, just because it's still up in the air. If Bradford plays, it's super interesting, depending on what the line is, just because Tampa Bay came off such a dominating performance in their first game, and Minnesota struggled, and mostly because of Case Keenum.
It's a reverse zigzag.
It's a reverse zigzag for Tampa as well. So I think that'll be an interesting game to keep an eye on if Minnesota has a real quarterback and not Case Keenum again. The other games I had New Orleans, I had the Jags, just like you. I have Philadelphia written down. I
thought they played well, though. Philadelphia's playing the Giants.
Yeah, I think they played well, but I think that them only being favored by 6 with how the Giants have played, and I think Philadelphia's looked really good through 2 weeks. I actually think I like that line. I like Philadelphia going into this week. And I don't know if I call them a 6.
So you're saying that Philly would be favored in New York, according to you?
Philly would be favored in New York. Yes. I think New York's that bad.
Interesting. All right. I guess I'm not off the bandwagon yet. So
I think New York's pretty bad. And then I think that's all of the zigzags I have written down.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get to our plays for the weekend. Some of our best bets. I went 3-4 last week. Not a great week. Not gonna kill you though.
I think I went 3-4 as well.
All right. So I'll start us off here. I have a couple college plays, 4 college plays. All right. Say 1, 2. I have 8 plays this week. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but we're gonna find. I have first one, my alma mater, Maryland Terrapins, playing the Golden Knights of UCF. I like the over 59.5. I triple starred that. I
saw that. I thought that was gonna come. I thought we were gonna get a big story or something. Maybe I got pretty excited.
Maryland's offense has been unbelievable. They might be a little rusty to start off the game because they had a bye week. UCF's offense also has been unbelievable. I expect this game to be maybe like a slightly less scoring version of how they played Texas, like 51-41 or something crazy, 45-42 or something like that. I expect this game to go way over 59.5. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that game. I think both those offenses have been playing well. I started. I'm doing a little bit more college football stuff, so I might be able to add things to these games with you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at one of mine. I've thought about it and I don't like it, so I'm taking it off. But
perfect.
Two more college games, and I'll throw in an extra NFL play just for fun. I have Nebraska minus 10.5. This is a classic zigzag game. Nebraska is coming off where they looked just pitiful against last week.
I don't know. They played last week.
My mind is just blanking right now. Oh, Northern Illinois. They look terrible against Northern Illinois. Then they, after coming back so valiantly against Oregon, they haven't particularly looked great all season. But I just do not believe in Rutgers, and I think that they will be ready to go. Home crowd, a classic Big Ten matchup of Rutgers, Nebraska. Nebraska minus 10.5. You like that? That's what everyone thought about whenever Nebraska joined the Big Ten, 4 years ago or 8 years ago, however long ago.
You just broke me.
All right. And then an actual Big Ten matchup. I like Michigan getting 9.5 at Purdue. Purdue has been a great story. They played super well. Michigan's coming off of a so-so game. Michigan's going to roll into Purdue, beat Purdue by like 25, show them that they are still the team to beat in the Big Ten. It's going to be them, Ohio State, Penn State. I like Michigan a lot in this game. I think they are just going to roll. Their defense is far too good for Purdue's. Purdue's, like I said, they're a nice story, but they just do not have the personnel to match up with Michigan. And I think Michigan's offense, Purdue's defense is not great. I think Michigan will be able to score some points. I expect this game to be like 35-10 or something like that. Michigan rolls Purdue.
Yeah, I think we just kind of learned last week with the way Clemson beat Louisville that Purdue's, biggest, Purdue kept it close against Louisville in the first week, right? And that's kind of been a big thing for them. I think maybe we learned Louisville's not quite as good as we think they are against big time opponents. So you might learn the same about Purdue this week.
Yeah, but Purdue's played well all year though.
Yeah, that's true.
Ohio 44-21, and Ohio is a very, very good group of 5 team.
Sure.
And Missouri, Missouri's offense is supposed to be spectacular, and they just beat them 35-3. So I think Purdue has a lot going for them, but Michigan should be getting more than 9.5 at Purdue.
Sure.
So that's my college football plays. What says you?
I have one, and I'm also going with my alma mater. I like WVU minus 21 against Kansas this week. I think
Oh, yeah.
Kansas is really bad, really, really bad, and WVU's shown that they can put up points against lesser opponents. So I think minus 21 is a pretty good line to get there. It was
And
minus 22.5 a couple of days ago, so it's actually gone more in WVU's favor. So
WVU is probably mad that they lost to Oklahoma State. They're ready to take out some anger.
yeah,
And West Virginia. I mean, the Kansas Baylor game is just going to be just amazing this year. It's going to
be wonderful.
Circa 2003.
Yeah,
Awesome.
can't wait.
So, and then on my NFL games, my favorite game so far this week is I just love the spot. Buffalo +3 against Denver. We talked about Denver earlier. Buffalo's not a bad team. I just don't trust Denver on the road. I think Buffalo's going to win this game outright. I'm going to have them in some teasers. I like Buffalo +3. Give me those points.
Cool.
Also talked about them earlier. I like the Jets +6. Also, we'll have them in some teasers. I don't think that Miami's going to be able to score enough to just blow them out of the water. I don't really trust Cutler yet. Cutler's still unfamiliar with his receivers, although he is familiar with the scheme. I think that the Jets get amped up for this game. I could even see the Jets winning if you like some teaser action on that. I know this is going to be a public play, given how they played so far, but I love Kansas City -3.5 at the Chargers. They don't have a home field. The Chargers just find ways to lose games. It's really quite amazing.
And I think Kansas City's beat two really good football teams to start the season, and they beat them pretty soundly. So I think Kansas City, yeah, that's good. I think that's a good play.
I'm rolling with the streak. Just keep it Kansas City. And
on Alex Smith train.
He was like 10-5-1 or something against the spread last year. So it's just what they do.
Yeah.
We talked about this game earlier. New Orleans +5.5 at Carolina. I like the spot for the New Orleans. Everyone's thrown off their scent. Carolina's just kind of sleepwalking. I don't think their defense is going to be as prepared as they would be because of the offenses they played. And despite the fact that I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have a good game, I think New Orleans will cover that. And then lastly, I love this. I hate this spot as a fan of this team, but I love this spot as a game perspective. Cardinals +3.5. Everyone is just done with the Cardinals. They're terrible. I think their defense has turned it around. The way they looked in that second half, I'm not even sure the Colts had 100 yards of offense in the second half. They're going to force some turnovers from Dak, who's been a little more reckless this year, and just the offensive line hasn't been as good. The Cardinals are going to be able to get pressure, I think. This is a strength-on-strength game. Cardinals rush defense versus the Cowboys rush offense. Also, weakness-on-weakness game, the Cardinals offense versus the Cowboys defense. I think that the Cardinals will cover this game and win it outright, despite the massive amount of fans that are going to be there for the Cowboys and also the Cardinals' future record on Monday Night Football games, which is downright bad.
Not good.
I like the Cardinals +3.5.
All right, I'll go through mine pretty quick. I got Houston, New England under 44. When I was looking through over-unders, the kind of the sweet spot for Vegas missing so far has been their games in between 40 and 45 points, whether it be over or under. And a lot of those games have been hitting under any sort of those games between 40 and 45 points last week. The under or the over was 3 and 6. So I really like any.
That's a great point. That's a great point because I was going to say at the beginning of the podcast, the games that were like really high, like the Packers Falcons game and the Patriots Saints game, both went over, and then both went under.
Yeah, the games they've had 38 to 39. It's it's kind of like a general guideline, right? If Vegas is setting a line really low, you should be betting the under because it's probably going to be a low scoring game. If they set it really high, you should be betting the over. But these games in the middle is where they've really been missing on the under. So they went 3 and 6 last week in games between 40 and 45 points. So I really like the under here. I still don't think Houston's offense has anything figured out. Last year when they didn't have anything figured out, this was a 27-0 game. I don't see Houston giving up enough points to New England for New England to kind of single-handedly put this game over 44 points. I don't see Houston scoring enough to help them get it over 44 points either.
And the playoff game was low scoring too.
Exactly. Seattle and Tennessee, I have another under for a 40 to 45 point game. I have under 42 there. I think both defenses are playing pretty good football. I know the run is a strength for Tennessee versus the defense of Seattle, but like we talked about, Seattle plays a lot of really low scoring tight games to start the season, and I expect more of that here. We're going to go with over a high total. I'm going to go with Oakland and Washington over 54.5. Oakland's offense kind of looks unstoppable through the first 2 weeks, but their defense obviously has holes in it. I think Washington's good enough to move the ball off the field and score enough to push that over 54.5 points. I've got Kansas City minus 3.5. I agree with you there. I think that's just a really good football team. I'm fully on the Alex Smith Kareem Hunt train. Justin Houston looks like Justin Houston again. That defense, even without Eric Berry, looked really good last week. So count me in.
By the way, Alex Smith, best scoring quarterback in fantasy so far.
Yeah, everybody should be picking him up. Not really. That's a lie. He's never finished better than 13th. So
I almost traded for him today, but it got rejected.
Well, you're lucky. He's never finished better than 13th. I don't expect Alex Smith to continue to be the guy that wins in football games. And then the last one, we talked about this game a little bit. I just think we saw the real Jacksonville last week, so I have Baltimore -4 against Jacksonville, even with all that London experience the Jaguars have.
Don't ever do that again.
Oh, but it's really good. I should be in Harry Potter. That's all I got.
All right. Next week, we have to do some NHL props because I don't know shit, but I still want to do it.
Oh, it'll be fun. Yeah, we'll lose everybody a ton of money.
But we can at least talk about them, even if we don't pick anything. But this week we're doing some NBA player props. We got MVP, Rookie of the Year, maybe even some Coach of the Year.
We can talk a little Coach of the Year. I don't have any lines on it, but we can certainly talk who we think's going to win Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting candidates this year. It seems a little more wide open because the field seems more wide open to me.
Yeah, I agree.
But let's start with what you got. We got MVP to begin with.
All right, we'll talk a little MVP to start. I have, I think the three guys that have 3 out of the 5 best odds are probably your good bets. I think Kawhi at +350, he's the favorite right now that I can find on Bovada. I think Kevin Durant at +550 and LeBron James at +450 are probably your 3 smartest bets. I think it depends on how long Isaiah Thomas is in or out for LeBron James, but I think I don't know why. Maybe it's because I follow him on Instagram and he likes to yell when he lifts a lot, but I just feel like this year he's kind of got something to prove in his head. And I think the Kyrie Irving thing's going to motivate him a little bit. I know it sounds dumb and cliche, but it just feels like he kind of thrives off these spites that he, real or perceived, that he feels. So I like LeBron. I like KD. He's shown that within the flow of the natural offense, he can be a guy that averages over 30 points a game like he did in the finals against Cleveland. And then Kawhi, he's just incredible. He and Draymond Green are 1A, 1B best defenders in the NBA, and he carries the load on offense very efficiently for San Antonio, and he is unequivocally the only guy there now. I don't think we can even talk about LaMarcus Aldridge as the top guy anymore there to help him out. So when San Antonio obviously wins their 55-plus games this year, it's going to be because of Kawhi Leonard. And I think the way the media kind of reacts, they kind of like a guy being, the guy on his team when they vote for MVP. And Kawhi's never won one, and he's been consistently this good, and he's only getting better, so he's got a good chance there. For my best bet, my value bet, I like Jimmy Buckets for the Minnesota Timberwolves at +10,000. He's worth $5. He's worth a $5 bet for a $500 payout, right? He's behind. Here's who he's behind or equal to in his odds to win the MVP. He is behind Carmelo Anthony. He's equal to Draymond Green. He is behind his teammates, Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, even though he is the best player on that team. He is behind Joel Embiid. He's behind DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Jokic, Isaiah Thomas, who's not even going to play to start the season. He's behind DeMarcus Cousins. He's behind I guess those are the only guys that it makes no sense. He's behind all those guys in odds. And
it is equal to Kristaps, and the Knicks are going to win 30 games this year.
Exactly. And I think Minnesota's probably, maybe the Sixers, if they do happen to make the playoffs, have the biggest win improvement from this season from last season to this season. And I think Minnesota probably ends up being the team that gets that distinction. Voters love that. If they would finish, second or third in the West, and Jimmy Butler would have a huge season, I could certainly see him making a run at the award. And I just think the value at plus 10,000 for a guy that's going to be the best player on a team that makes a huge jump from a non-playoff team to what I think is going to be a top 4 or 5 playoff team in the West is going to get a lot of consideration.
So I'm in the same boat with you on that line of thought, and I like the Jimmy Butler one. No, I'm not even saying I like this one better, but I think Paul Millsap at plus 20,000.
That's I forgot about that one. Yeah,
isn't the same thing, because he's going to be the best player on Denver probably, and if they surprise people and they're like the 3rd seed, he's going to get a lot of credit for that, and he might not win it, but I bet he might finish top 3 or something, and I think that's good value. I think my favorite value, though, is Steph Curry plus 1,200, which seems absurd. He could have another monster year. There's no reason why he couldn't. Golden State's going to be the best team. Plus 1,200 seems low.
I find it incredibly interesting just looking at the odds that Minnesota has 4. They're the only team that has 4 players with MVP odds right now. Jeff Teague's also on there at plus 25,000. I don't know what the hell he's doing on there. He has no business being there, but I don't know why he's there. They have 4 players. Golden State has 3. They have Draymond, Steph, and KD, but that just seems weird to me.
Agree with you there.
Jeff Teague, MVP dark horse. You heard it here first.
And then we have some Rookie of the Year odds. What who do you like there?
I have 3. I like the 2 are kind of boring. It's Dennis Smith Jr. and Lonzo Ball. Lonzo's the favorite at plus 225. Dennis Smith's plus 300. I think they're both going to have they're point guards on a team where they're going to have the reins to do with what they want. And a lot of years you see that's just what wins Rookie of the Year, guys that put up raw counting numbers. And opportunities where they get to play a lot and get to make mistakes. And I think LA is going to display Lonzo, A, because he's going to sell tickets and sell merchandise, and B, because him showing improvement throughout the season is the best way for them to recruit Paul George and LeBron James for next year. And they're definitely thinking about that. Dennis Smith, same kind of situation. I think Orlando Dallas. Mark Cuban's always chasing free agents. And I think he's a stud. I watched him play quite a bit at NC State last year, even though college basketball is not my favorite thing. And I just think he's very good, and I think Mark Cuban's going to let him kind of run free. He always thinks he has a chance at every free agent. The state tax helps a lot as well. But I think showing off your young assets is good. And Dirk Nowitzki had a ton of high praise for him. And if you're getting praise from Dirk, he may just be blowing smoke, but I think it probably means something. My other play that I like is Lauri Markkanen, whatever how to pronounce his name, in Chicago at plus 3,300. He kind of Fred Hoiberg is an offensive guy. Morgan is an offensive guy. He's got range. He can shoot the 3. I think he's going to rebound the ball well, protect the rim. Okay, he doesn't really care much for defense. Also, halfway into my 2K my player's season, he's averaging 12.5 points and 8.5 rebounds per game for the Chicago Bulls in a lot of minutes. So I just think that that's really indicative of who's going to win Rookie of the Year this year.
See, I just don't think Markkanen's any good, so I don't like that. One person that
what part of 12.5 points and 8.5 rebounds don't you understand?
Look, he looked terrible. Obviously the summer league's not indicative all the time, but he looked terrible. But he did rebound a little bit in the whatever FIBA games they had over the summer. But
I don't know how much I actually.
And he's not even on the list. Is Donovan Mitchell? Donovan Mitchell has the ability, the second best player in Utah.
That's true. He actually does. He's very, very good.
And whatever his odds would be, I would take his odds to be that was a long shot. But I think Dennis Smith is going to win it because crappy point guards are good with with Carlisle, and Dennis Smith's just going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he hasn't. You're right. I hadn't thought about that. He definitely has an advantage at coach in that race.
And they don't tank in Dallas.
They're going to try to win games, and he's going to play a lot.
Yeah, he is. I mean, Lonzo Ball's going to play a lot too, but I also think Dennis Smith's just better than Lonzo Ball. But that's neither here nor there.
We already know what I think about Lonzo Ball.
So Lonzo Ball's going to be fun though, man. He makes passes that like 8-year veterans make. He sees the court incredibly well.
He has incredible court vision. I agree.
So yeah, that's going to be fun.
Again, my player, 12.5 points, 8.5 rebounds. I have faith in Markkanen. Actually, I just wanted to make a 2K my player reference and joke. That's really the reason I picked Markkanen there.
The whole point behind that was that.
Nah, I mean, I would have made a joke that James Haldeman was going to win Rookie of the Year if that was the case.
And then I don't see any odds for Coach of the Year, but
I can't find any. Yeah,
there's definitely some interesting candidates this year. Given there's a lot of teams that can jump, right? Like Thibodeau is going to be in there. Malone's going to,
Malone
for Denver. Then you just have teams that could perennially overachieve at the bottom of the East. Like because Charlotte, was so terrible last year. You can see I always forget his name, but and he's a great coach too. So
you can see somebody like if Atlanta overachieves instead of maybe they squeak into the 8th playoff spot, maybe Budenholzer wins Coach of the Year. That's certainly something. I could see Gentry winning it if New Orleans is good. Yeah, there's a. I think the consistency at the top is not going to be rewarded as much as one of these teams making a jump finally.
Right.
And
I think there's a lot of teams that could make a jump. I think as opposed to other years. So I think the
absolutely.
Coach of the Year race is going to be more wide open. Although I don't know, 8th seed. It took almost exceptional circumstances for Spolstra to win it last year, and they were going to be an 8th seed. So I think you kind of have to be higher than that. So I think we're looking at a team that it was like a 9th seed that would have to jump to the 5th or 4th seed.
Sure.
Something of that. Steve Clifford is the guy. And
yes.
Steve Clifford, I think he could jump up to, they could be out of the playoffs. They could jump up to a 4 or 5 seed or something like that, just because the East is so weird. Jason Kidd might get some love if
Kemba Walker somehow breaks everybody in the NBA's ankles, and the Hornets are the only team left, and they finish first in the East, something like that. Yeah.
There you go. Jason Kidd, if the Bucks are the 2nd, 3rd seed, or Giannis is an NBA candidate.
Giannis is plus 1K to win MVP. I kind of like that.
Tied with Harden. It's crazy. That's way too high.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Harden, I don't. Who knows? MVP is going to be fun this year.
If Giannis was plus 2,000, I'd like it. But plus 1,000, that's too much.
He might average a triple-double this year, and everybody loves it when you average a triple-double.
Fair point. So, but is that all we got?
I think that's all we got on the docket for today.
All right. Well, next week will be fun. Hopefully we come back with a positive record on our best bets this week. And, it's always fun. And I already know what the title of this podcast is going to be. So this specific episode, it's going to be
NBA 2K.
Classic Big Ten matchup. And we'll go from there.
This is it. I'm never doing this podcast with you again.
Never.
I hope in your best bets you just come with a classic Big Ten matchup every single week now.
Yeah, whenever one of the new ones plays one of the also new ones.
I think that's a requirement for you for the rest of the podcast.
All right, I can do that.
All right, perfect. What a way to end it.
We'll see you next week.
Take it easy.